Hello and welcome back to the shop. This is a WPL C94 and I think it looks very realistic. It doesn't exactly perform like a dedicated crawler, but then it's not meant to. It's really good at what it does, which is representing the performance of the car on which it's based. However, it has a guilty secret. Yep, it's a four-link on coils. When this beauty came out, if you wanted a scale hard body 1/12 four-wheel drive, you pretty much had to go coil sprung, unless of course you were prepared to get creative. To get my hands on a leaf sprung 1/12 scale RC car, I had to get a 1/16 scale lorry chassis and then buy two car bodies and stretch a body, join two car bodies together to get the right length. But this is first generation WPL springing, and there's not that much articulation available at all. That's no longer the case because WPL have released the WPL C94, a faithful hardbody model of the UAZ-469, which I certainly came to know and love from watching Stranger Things. And it's leaf sprung, not just leaf sprung, but a wonderful V2. When a leaf spring is compressed, it elongates slightly, and some provision must be made for that elongation, otherwise it simply can't move. Rather than do it as it's done in the full-size world, for the first gen, WPL opted to come up with this weird system where the thing skids along that surface there. No full-size vehicle does that. But on the V2 suspension setup, they've given us proper moving suspension shackles, and this feels beautiful. It's a whole world away from the horrible old setup. Well, this UAZ is brand new and all running, so we should be able to just weather it up and then get out and hit the trails, yeah? Well, yeah, except I keep looking at it and thinking, I want to shorten that body into a pickup cab. Indulge me, I beg you. Imagine, if you will, a vertical cut here and another here, and then we join this back bit onto there. What would be the problems? I think the biggest problem would be the roof, because it doesn't reach its highest point until a bit too far back. Well, I don't have to ride in the thing, so if the roof is causing us problems, I say let's take it off. But before we rip this thing to bits, I am curious as to how well it performs with those tiny, scrawny tyres and these leaf springs. So let's have a look. Okay, I'm going to have to take a run up to get the traction. Well, it stopped as you saw and wouldn't go up the ramp. I walked over to check and found that we've lost a wheel. Closer inspection reveals that we haven't just had a wheel come unscrewed. There's the fixing screw. We've had a piece of plastic shear. And you saw the load it was under. I don't believe I was treating the vehicle unreasonably. Back to the workshop, I think. Here's the part. It's the wheel hex. It's 2 days later and I have attempted to contact WPL, but so far all I've had is automated messages. The problem seems to be that they want proof that I bought the thing from their store before they'll engage with me, and I can't supply that proof because this thing was a gift bought for me by my mother, and she genuinely doesn't remember how she bought it. She just knows that someone young must have come round and she must have got them to help her. For now then, we're stuck in this situation. We don't have a front lift wheel and we don't know if we're ever going to get a front lift wheel. But what I'm going to do is continue with the modifications to the body anyway. This is because I have faith in WPL. They have a very good reputation for customer service. Well, as you see, I was able to get the roof off without too much trouble, and in fact it wasn't that difficult to remove the body. The two black lines are where I propose to cut the body. And what about some sort of rear bed? Well, I did think we could keep it pure WPL and use the back end of a farm truck. But what I'd really like is some sort of pickup style load bed. For now, I think I should concentrate on sticking the two halves of this body together. I've glued on some little tabs. I'm hoping these will help me to locate and also to retain the back bit when I glue it on. The rear of the body had lights, vehicle registration plate, spare wheel carrier. I've taken all that off and filled the holes where it used to be. Time to reunite the body with itself, I think. I've just pushed the back of the cab into place, but I suppose it'll come out looking something like this. The two halves of the body are finally rejoined. And the interior all fits and works. That was a little bit complicated because I have to fit the floor of this bit over the floor of this bit. Anyway, it's all done and it all looks marvellous and works perfectly. There's been a response from WPL. I had a friendly email from a guy named Leon saying not to worry about the fact that I didn't buy the model through the WPL store, that they would send me the part free of charge. All I have to do is open a store account so I can pay for the postage. And it leaves me free to carry on thinking about the important things, such as what colour to paint this. As I often do, I've replaced the plastic radiator blanking panel with real mesh. For the rear bed, I'm going to use this 1/16 scale WPL truck bed. I'm going to need to shorten the front of it to get the wheel arch to line up. Now that I've shortened it, let's see. That looks pretty good height-wise, or at least it does when you consider that I've got a 10mm gap there to close up. Let's find a way to get this bed down to chassis level and bolted in place. I've just glued into place 3 pieces of wood, which will allow me to screw down the rear bed. I am going to be weathering this model, so the next thing to do is to paint it to look rusty colours. To save time, I usually just show the body looking rusty and don't focus on it very much, but it's not just one colour. I don't just paint it brown, I paint it about 2 or 3 different colours. If I can get the camera to focus on this rusty bit, you'll see that there's brown, then orange over the top of that, and even a modest amount of matte black. Then once the rusty paint job is done, I dirty it up with acrylic wash. They've been sprayed rusty and salted, and I'm waiting for the water to dry so I can apply the top coat. Here are the body parts painted and weathered. I wanted to give the impression that this was a vehicle which had served in olive drab and since been sent to Afghanistan and given a hasty paint job over the green. I've had a Land Rover like that once. I've also been painting and weathering the interior. It seems that the seats have a metal frame and I've tried to pick that out. And as ever, the seat isn't painted where the driver figure is going to go, because it's very probable that I'll have to cut him out because these 5-inch figures are often slightly too tall for 1/12 scale. This is Dr. Helen Cutter from the Welsh TV show Primeval, and she doesn't fit. Not without cutting her lower legs off completely. That is a real shame, but there's no way I'm hurting Helen. So we're going to have to find another driver figure. This is my Traxxas Slash, and this is Gareth from The Walking Dead, who, as you can see, doesn't have a lower half to his body. So I'm going to take Gareth from the Slash because I can replace him in the Slash with a table football player. This is because when he's in the Slash with the body on, you can hardly see him. You can't see the realism of his face or even that he has arms. So a table football player will replace him perfectly well, and we can use the realism of him to greater effect. This is the head and shoulders of Gareth from The Walking Dead, glued to the torso of Professor Nick Cutter, husband of Dr. Helen Cutter from the Welsh TV show Primeval. Having chiselled the head and shoulders of Gareth out of the Traxxas Slash, I rummaged through a drawer and found the lower half of a guy called Nick. So I think the hybrid I've created from the two should be called Garrick. So Garrick is our driver. I did wonder why his head was so much too small for him, but then I told myself sternly that we're not supposed to make those sort of personal remarks about people these days, are we? Oh dear, he looks ridiculously small in there, doesn't he? Something will have to be done. Look, I'm not a surgeon, but I think I can fix this with a head transplant. Which means that this table football player has a date with an angle grinder. Well, the patient has just come round after the operation, and as you can see he's still a little pale, but he's the right height now. Permit me to explain what you're looking at. Above we have the axle from the WPL C94 which arrived broken. Below we have the axle from an MN40. Look at the steering knuckles. Let's look at the intact ones. WPL MN models. I don't know, but it looks to me as if I might be in with a chance of modifying it to fit. This is the part that had failed. The black hex had simply snapped off the end. The MN41 seems to fit fine. With the axle reinstalled, I'm going to deflect the steering all the way one way, give it a twist. That's fine. Deflect it as far as I can the other way. Same again. Okay, it looks as though we've got away with using this MN drive cup. After I found that the MN part fits the WPL, I went ahead and assembled the entire truck. Want to see it? This is how it's come out. Though I'm not that concerned about lights, I did take the trouble to reconnect them and have no idea why they're not working. I like it. I like the unique look of the canvas shortened hood, and I particularly like the way it covers up my not particularly brilliant driver figure. Also, in the bed we have the spare wheel that was supplied by WPL, and we don't have a jerry can 3D printed for me by my mate Dave, because they are 20 litre and they don't fit. So this is a little 10 litre one. I feel I must point out that after I reassembled the truck last night, I went to bed, woke up this morning, and there was an email from WPL. So I am going to be getting the correct spare eventually. Before we go out on the trails, there's one thing I'd like to show you that impressed me that I saw yesterday. This thing has counter-rotating prop shafts, even though it's got leaf springs. That's impressive. Well, I think it's time. Let's see it go.